Period, period. The following is a reenactment from Perry v. Schwarzenegger, the Bob Kane trial in U.S. District Court. Dr. George Chuck, professor of history at Yale University and expert witness to the plaintiff on the history of discrimination, is under direct examination of the plaintiff by the plaintiff's intervener's attorney, Therese Stewart. The plaintiffs in this case are two same-sex couples who simply want to marry, just as any other loving couple in America is allowed and given the right to do.
I wondered if you could describe discrimination, or give me some examples of discrimination that has a constraint on.
Right. I was going to discuss discrimination in public accommodation and employment. Let's start with accommodation. Probably one of the most important instances of this was back in 1933 with the repeal of the prohibition. First New York State, and then successfully many other states, issue regulations that prohibited from serving, bars and restaurant cabarets or any other place with liquor license. From serving drinks or to lesbians, gay men, or allowing them to congregate on the premises. And this, of course, just had a profound impact on the lesbian and gay sociability for the lesbian and gay men, and also for heterosexuals. And this bars and restaurants were places that people would go to eat, friends, and socialize. But they were particularly important for lesbians and gay men because they had to be so careful to hide their gay identities in so many other social settings. And at the workplace, often with their biological families, and so that they were really key to finding the places where they could go just to socialize with people of their own kind. And what this meant was that this criminalization meant that when people went to a regular bar or restaurant, normal bar or restaurant, they typically had to be very careful to hide the fact that they were gay in fear of being excluded. And so they often sought out places that they had to find they could make money with the snitch market, who would pay higher prices for drinks. So there were a few places where they could be open. Both of those places to survive had to pay bribes to police and were often to organize criminal syndicates, which had relationships with the police, or were even run by organized criminal syndicates. So, it meant that gay life was just meshed with a web of criminality because criminalization of the gay and lesbian sociability.
The area of the bar sort of explicitly excludes life from the law, and how did they do that?
Well, they did it in a range of ways. Certainly bartenders in a normal bar, quote unquote, if they realized that someone was gay, they could simply eat as they could refuse to serve them drinks. Tell them that they're 86 and have them leave the bar, which could be quite embarrassing. I have interviewed people who had experienced this in front of their friends and found it completely humiliating. But then in the lesbian and gay bars themselves particularly, well, actually not just those, in the bars in neighborhoods with gay reputation, bar owners sometimes put a sign over the bars itself that would say, and I've heard various ones described, and seen them in literature. If you're gay, please stay away, or it's against the law to serve homosexuals, so please don't ask us to serve homosexuals. And so this conveys a very clear message for both gay and straight customers that homosexuals were a despised category to be excluded. And they were also a part of the way the bars tried to protect themselves from police, to show that they were being vigilant and exclude gay people.
So how did these authorities enforce these laws?
Well, with the beauty of liquor license and the licensing system was that it meant the small business owner who ran a bar had to get a license to sell, or a restaurant, or a cabaret, or to get a license to sell liquor, and had to enforce the regulations imposed by whatever the liquor authority was, and knew that he or she always risked losing that license and really losing that investment if the liquor authority realized they were not enforcing those regulations. So, first of all, the licensing system itself meant that every single bar had a staff that was trying to make sure the bar wouldn't get in trouble. The second, local patrolmen and periodically would sort of look in to see what's happening in your place, to make sure it wasn't disorderly. And then the liquor authorities themselves had the special investigators who would go undercover in restaurants and bars and so forth to just make sure that a range of regulations were being followed, including the prohibition against serving sex workers. They then, if they saw them, would report them, and then could make the closure of the place.
Did other authorities besides the police, the local police, or liquor authorities, get involved in policing efforts?
Well, bars that were mostly military-based, certainly in the big cities during the war, were also put under surveillance by a sort of coalition task force of the military officials and police officials, because the military was quite keen to making sure that the sailors and soldiers weren't going into such places. So they joined with the police in investigating, had their offices limited, and tried to get these places closed, and so other persons were brought in.
So if you were a police officer and you were enforcing these efforts, or a military person, how did you know the bar was serving gay people?
Well, good question. There were two major techniques used. One was to record, take notes of an act that one man is picking up another man. And it's usually a man in the case, because it was a sure sign of homosexual. So what the police and the liquor authority agents did often was to send plainclothes policemen into the bars who would strike up conversations with customers, lead them on, and then, at some point, with an invitation, will issue to leave the bar and go home, bring handcuffs and the rest. So that will leave the rest of the bar goers, and they would also be the best proof possible that homosexuals were at the bar. And so it would then be reported, and that would be the process they would go through. The other way was to, and actually this is one of the courtrooms, where a bar had tried to challenge the position of its license. The police would actually point to stereotypical gender behaviors or cross-gender behaviors that associated lesbian and gay men, and in fact had evidence that a bar was patronized by them. So, for instance, a police woman might report that she's seen two women dancing together, or women with short hair, or women who are wearing articles of masculine clothing, or women who stagger or swagger around a bar in a way that is more masculine than a woman should walk. Or likewise, they would point out men whose clothing were just a little bit too unconventional, a little bit too colorful, whose hair was too long to dress each other in similar ways. The most startling example for me was sort of one of the signs that the police officer gave that the bar was gay, was that he had overheard two men talking about the opera, which was something that a real man wouldn't talk about.